says I'm live. Nobody brought a laptop? Would you mind just checking out the YouTube live stream, make sure it's working? Sure. If you don't mind. Well, I guess you probably need a link though, don't you? Oh, that'd work too. Are you on it? Is it working? Sweet. All right. Dang. Sometimes technology's amazing.
There's about a 20-second delay, but that's pretty normal.
Yeah, that's okay. So it's not really live.
You're live when you've got a minor delay to it.
So does that mean if I swear they'll beep it out before it goes out? That's. Well, it's going to be beeping a lot then, I can tell you. All right.
Hey, Troy.
Yes.
Andy says that she thinks it's interesting that we never go to lunch in Donaldson for the Davis County. Because there's 2 Davis County lunches.
There is. Yes. Well, I can set the next one up in Bountiful. I don't have a problem with that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, see? Where do you live? North Salt Lake?
It is Woods Cross.
See?
Okay. September, we'll have a Bountiful one. Or Woods Cross. Let's see, Woods Cross is further away than Bountiful, though, isn't it?
It's right next to it.
It's all kind of together. Yeah.
How about Farmington? I mean, that's not bad, right?
Yeah.
Well, they got decent restaurants.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Farmington Station.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Farmington Station would be good. Then people could ride the train, right? Did you guys want to take a minute and say hello, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll let you do that at the beginning.
Okay.
In fact, why don't we go ahead and do that now, if you guys want to.
Yeah.
One or both, or... So, let me, by way of introduction. So we're at Software Technology Group. That's what this building is, right? That's the company that I work for. And that's the company that these wonderful recruiters work for. Software Technology Group sponsors our Azure user group. They pay for the food. They don't pay me to do this. I need to talk to them about that. But and that's another topic. So, we do these for lots of reasons. We like to interact with the community. We like to, talk to people about things that I'm passionate about, Azure specifically. But we also do it as a recruiting tool to help people find jobs if they're looking for stuff. And so we have these great recruiters here. And I'm going to let them go ahead and take a couple minutes and talk about recruiting stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm Jess. I'm a recruiter here, and I've been here for over 8 years. Basically, that's what we do. We just recruit. What do you want us to talk about? Oh, yeah.
I'll leave it to you.
We're hiring. We have some .NET jobs. We do have a need for .NET Azure C# as we are here.
Nice.
So if you are in the business of looking, hit us up because we need you.
Yeah.
And we also have jobs in other fields too. Java. We have React, Angular, all kinds of stuff going on. So we're always accepting applications. We love referrals. We do get referral bonuses if you shoot people over to us when we hire them. So think about that for a minute. And now I'll let Andy talk a little bit.
Oh, I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm Angie. I've been here for 2 years. STG is a pretty awesome company to work for, but we hire most of our developers to work as consultants for clients that are employers just to like expand, we also hire not only developers, but all different types of tech positions. So like QA analysts, product and project managers, business analysts, UX UI designers, all the things I can't think of all right now. But, so if you know people who are looking, we would love to help where we can. STG is kind of like a big family and has an awesome culture. We really love it here. Anyway, if you guys have questions, please come talk to us and we'd love to chat with you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've been with STG for a long time. I've been with them for 20 years, so I really like them. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and get started then. And I'm going to hopefully be able to watch the screen. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the AI tools that are in Azure. So AI, I mean, that's everything these days, right? Everybody's talking AI, ChatGPT, DALL-E, all of these really cool AI tools. And Azure has a lot of built-in AI tools that we, as developers, can use. You probably heard, what was it, several months ago, maybe longer, Microsoft invested $10 billion into ChatGPT. And it's integrated now into Bing, and it's a first-class resource inside of Azure. So we'll take a look at some of that stuff today. So first of all, though, I want to just introduce myself. So my name is Troy Fillerup, and I always have to tell people that that is my real last name because it's just ridiculous. But I'm a solution architect and practice success manager here at STG. And like I said, I've been here for 20 years. I started out as a .NET developer, and I've kind of gone up through the ranks, I guess. I don't know. I don't do so much development anymore as I used to, which is a shame because I really like development. But I'm more into the Azure architecture, the cloud stuff now, and management and stuff like that. But I've been a developer since 1903. It feels like sometimes anyway. But no, I've been a developer for a long time. In fact, my first IDE that I used was VB3. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of VB3, but man, I hate that now that I look back on it. I'm an Azure enthusiast, and I'm one of the co-founders of Swagger. The other co-founder, Brian Foster, he's not here tonight, and so you're stuck with me. So that's just the way it is. So whenever I do one of these presentations, I always like to do a tech tip. And my tech tip today is about a thing called DevTunnel. So has anybody ever done Xamarin or .NET MAUI development in Visual Studio? Just one? Oh, shoot, this isn't going to be as exciting for you guys then. So let me tell you what the problem space is. So what happens is when you're building a Xamarin app, so I like to have my APIs that my Xamarin app or my MAUI app will call to get the data, right? And I like to use Azure Functions for that because I love Azure Functions. When you run your application, right, it'll spin it up in an Android emulator, or you can launch it onto your phone, and then it spins up the Azure Functions on your machine, running under localhost, right? So the problem is that from your phone, you cannot get to those Azure Functions on localhost, okay? So there's a couple of solutions. You could just publish them up to Azure, and then you can get to them because it's a public endpoint, right? And then your phone can get to them, and then you put in copious logging, and if anything goes wrong, you go look at the logs, and that's not a bad idea anyway, right? But sometimes you just like to have the IDE debug experience where you can step through lines of code. Well, you can't do that because from the phone or from the emulator, you can't get to your machine, right? So you could, actually, let me show you this. So there's a couple things that I tried back in the day. So here is Visual Studio. So one thing you can do is you can try to go to localhost. So this is what runs on the phone. That doesn't work, right? Because it can't get to localhost. So I tried to use the IP address. Well, that doesn't work either. So I found a couple of solutions a couple years ago. One of them was called Tailscale. And what it is it's a solution that allows you install an app on your phone and on your desktop, and then it creates a private virtual network that both of those devices can be on. And you can have any device you want be on that private virtual network. So it gives them all an IP address, and you can talk, and that's great. The problem is you've got to install an app on the phone in order to do that. Same thing, there's another one I started using after that. So I use NordVPN, and it has a feature called MeshNet that does the same thing. So it creates a virtual network across the internet. I mean, you can have these things all over the place, but they all are inside this virtual network. So that works great. Again, the problem is you have to install an app on the device. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I was poking around Visual Studio and I found this thing called Dev Tunnels. Now, what Dev Tunnels does is you can set up a Dev Tunnel, and then when you run your app, okay, it fires up the Azure functions on your machine, and then it creates a virtual tunnel. So it gives you a new URL. It creates a tunnel into your virtual machine that you can access from outside. So the nice thing about that is you don't have to install anything on your device because it's just a URL. So if I go and so you can see here, this right here then is the URL that it creates to go into your Azure function. And it just does that automatically for you. If you have Dev Tunnels turned on, which I don't, if I come here and I create this, make this the active tunnel, now if I run this, and I promise you this worked earlier at home, so if it doesn't work now, it's not my fault. But we'll see. So it's actually going to start up the Android emulator. And it's going to start up. So I really should have recorded this so we didn't have to sit here and watch this because this is boring. And you're going to see my super awesome Maui app. This is going to impress the crap out of you, I'm pretty sure. And if it doesn't, then that's on you, I guess. This is Visual Studio. Visual Studio 2020. This is Preview Edition because I like using Preview because I like my stuff to break because the features aren't all there yet. Did somebody have a question?
Oh, there's some people in the Azure group that can't, in the Meetup group that can't get on, but I'm not, when I click the link, it just took me to the Meetup page. Where can I link?
So in the Meetup page, there's a link for the YouTube live stream embedded in the description. Did you find it? Yeah, okay. So that should be, you got into it, right? Over here? Yeah? Okay. All right, so let's see, is it, all right, so when it has to deploy to the emulator, it takes a minute. So if this doesn't happen soon, then we'll give up. But the point is that now I don't have to install anything on my emulator because the emulator doesn't have the Google Play Store, so I can't install an app on it anyway. So all I need to do is set my base address of my HTTP client to this URL that it sets up, and then I can go in and hit my endpoints, which is really cool. So if you look in here, so this is my Azure function running locally, it still shows the local host here, so it still thinks it's local host, and you can still hit it that way. But if we go back over here, okay, so now, theoretically, if I were to go here and hit fetch data, the function result, so that came back from the function. Cool, right? Man, I was so excited when I found that. I thought that was the awesomest thing. So if you do mobile development in Visual Studio and you do want to call out to these HTTP endpoints running on your local host, do this because this is freaking awesome. So, all right. Well, I thought it was a lot cooler than you guys do, but that's okay. All right, so let's move on to the AI stuff. That's what you guys came here for anyway. All right, so Azure has a lot of AI services built in, right? And they're getting more all the time. In fact, the other day when I was preparing this, I hadn't been into the AI for a while, and it had changed completely. How many of you are getting into the Azure portal consistently, right? Pretty much every day you go in there, something's different, right? It's like, well, where the crap did that menu option go? Well, they move things around. It's a constant battle. So when I went in the other day, it had changed a little bit. I'm going to talk about one of the changes that I saw. So we're going to talk about some of the out-of-the-box AI services. We're going to talk a little bit about OpenAI, and we're not going to really talk about these too much because we just don't have time. I mean, Azure Machine Learning, that's a master's course in itself, right? Because machine learning encompasses, I mean, that's where you get down to the nitty-gritty. These other things are easy to use. So let's, so these are some of the AI services that you have in Azure, right? There's a ton of them. So we've got a translator that can translate from any of hundreds of different languages to any of hundreds of other different languages. We've got Azure Cognitive Search that is a search, AI search tool. Anomaly detector. So I've used the anomaly detector to client. I used to work at UTA, and we were trying to predict when buses would get to the next stop, right? Even if they were, 10 stops away, we want to know when is he going to get here. And so what we would do is we would take the history of his actual travel time between all these stops and then calculate it. Problem is, let's say one day he got behind an accident for 30 minutes. Well, that's going to blow all of those calculations out of the water. So we pass all of that data through anomaly detector. It finds the outliers and returns to you a clean set of data. So that's super, super cool. I mean, it's one of those things that you could do it using Azure Machine Learning, but man, making a REST call or an SDK call just makes it a lot easier. We have custom vision, which we'll look at a little bit today. Or we'll look at vision. We have speech, so you can do text to speech, speech to text, all kinds of stuff like that. So there's just tons of different services inside of Azure, and you can combine them all in whatever way you need to combine them, okay? So the first thing, this is what I was talking about has changed since the last time I messed around with it. So it used to be that you had to set up a vision resource in Azure. You had to set up a speech resource in Azure. Now they have this concept of a multi-service account, and you set up the multi-service account, and then you can use the same endpoint and same key to do all of these different services, right? So let's take a look at that and see what it looks like in the portal. And I should have had this up already, but I didn't. So let me bring up the portal here. So we're going to go into our Slack group. And here I have my, okay, right here. My Azure Services multi-services account, or what do they call it? Azure AI Services multi-service account. That's a mouthful. And in here, you can do all of these different things. So we have our decision APIs, our language APIs, our speech APIs, vision, form recognizer, and metrics advisor. So now, rather than having to set up individual resources for all these different things, you can just use this one resource, and then you could use the same keys and the same endpoint, right, to do that. Now, I'm not going to show you my keys, but that's where you'd find them, okay? And the cool thing here, too, is that this is the gateway into playing with some of this stuff. So let's go take a look here at Vision, for instance. If we go into Vision, so there's a lot of quick starts. It helps you write the code, helps you use it, helps you know what REST APIs to call. And the nice thing about all of these is that you can call them in two ways. You can use HTTP REST endpoints, which you can call from anything, right? You can call an HTTP REST endpoint from Visual Basic 6. Probably not from Visual Basic 3, but Visual Basic 6 you can. And so that's very flexible. You can call these endpoints from anywhere. But there's also a lot of SDKs for a lot of different languages. And when there's an SDK available, I like to use the SDK just because it's strongly typed, and when you hit dot, it tells you what you can do, and it makes it really nice. So I like SDKs, and there is obviously an SDK for .NET. It would be ridiculous if there wasn't. But in here, we can actually go to, let's see, if we go into the documentation for computer vision, we can go, let's see, hold on, let me see. So there is a, what do they call it? Hold on, let me find it. Getting old sucks. I recommend against it because I keep having to put my glasses on and off, and it's just not cool. Touche. You got me on that one. Let's see. So we're going to go look at Azure Vision Studio. Well, that's weird. I pasted this in as a link, and it's not a link. That's unfortunate. So let's go over here and look for Azure Vision Studio. Okay, see? See what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. I gotta... Okay, well, this is uncool because I don't want to download Vision Studio. Huh. Okay, I'll have to see what's going on with that. Oh, I did? Oh, yeah. See, I put all this in the notes for the PowerPoint slide, but it put it in there and it pasted it as text without actually pasting in the link. So that was just great. Let's see. No, yeah, Vision Studio. Maybe this is it. Okay, yeah, here we go. Good suggestion. So what this is it's essentially just a way for you to play around and see what the APIs can do, right? So you can go into here and you can say, I want to remove backgrounds from an image. So that's one of the features that the Vision AI will give you. So you can pick an image here. And you can see that it removed the background from that image. And you can upload your own images and just play around. And then you can go in here and view the SDK reference or the REST API to see how that works in code, right? So we're actually going to go look at one of those. We're going to look at the Vision API in code and see what it looks like. So we want the AI Vision. We can close the dev tunnels. We don't need that for this. So when it's just this easy. So you give it the Vision endpoint, you give it the Vision key, and then this is just a URL to some image that you've got somewhere. And this is just a sample one from Microsoft. And then down here, you just fire up the SDK, and you're going to do, you're going to create a new image analyzer, and then you're just going to analyze that image. And that's all there is to it. And then it can return whatever you want from that. So let's see what this returns for us. Yeah, so there you go. So this is all of the stuff about that image. So it says it's a person pointing at a screen. I don't know if that's true. We probably, now remember what I said at the beginning of the thing, we need to trust but verify, right? So let's go see if it is actually a person pointing at a screen. Control, click. Okay, this is going really well today. I'm excited about this. Oh, here we go. There. Oh yeah, look at that. It's a person pointing at a screen. So, and it launched two of them, which we would have expected, I guess. So if we go look and see what else it says about it, it has some text that it found. It tells you exactly in the image where that text was, and it gives you all kinds of information about that image. So it all comes back as JSON, and you can just use that for whatever you want. So that's a really cool tool. We also have, well, let's see. Oh. Need to bring the browser back up. This one. Okay. So we also have the same kind of thing with our speech. So we can do speech, and then we can do speech to text or text to speech or translation. And they have, and I don't know why, the link was here yesterday for going in and playing with this stuff. I'm not sure where it is now. Every time you sign in, yeah, seriously. See, I was proven right. Um,
That's just to put it into code.
Yeah, so, well, we can go look at the code. So there's the Vision Studio. There's also a translation studio that you can go play with the translation. But I did make some code for that. So let's go take a look at that really quick. And translation's really cool because you can translate from any language to pretty much any language. So we're going to go look at the AI or the text translation. Okay. So again, it's super easy. We're using the same endpoint, the same key, and then we're going in here and we're going to read something from the console. And then all we need to do, okay, so this is using the HTTP endpoint rather than the SDK. So you can see how you can use that, and then it's just going to send it, and it's going to use this to determine what to translate. So it's going to translate from English to French and to German. So let's see if that works. That would be super cool if it works. Oh. We could try. Now you could definitely write the code to do that, right? You get the response and translate it and see how much you go before you can get it to say monkeys are typing on the screen or something. I don't know. So we can. So what should we do? We should say, is this going to work or not? Oh, you do have to spell it right, though. And then, no, it didn't. It just ended. So I need to pop this back up again. So there we go. So now you can see here's the French one, and I don't know. It could say something completely different as far as I know, because I don't know French. And there's the German one. Now here's something interesting too. We can do it to Japanese. I think it's JA. And then you can see it worked. That's the Japanese. That is actually Japanese. It just can't display Unicode in the terminal, right? Yeah, so we can do Spanish. I think Spanish is ES. And there's a web page that has all of these language codes. And I had it pasted into here as a link, and guess what? It didn't paste the link. So that's what I always want to say when I go to Mexico. So I need to know how to say that. So let's see if it works. Quiero ir a la playa. Yeah, that sounds Spanish to me. So I think we're good. Yeah. So, and the cool thing too is that you can, like I said, you can chain these things together. So you can use the speech recognition, right, to listen to the microphone and pull in somebody talking, translate it in real time, and play it on the speaker. So you can make a real-time universal translator just with a few lines of code. And I did that last year for the group, and I'd be sitting here talking in English, and out of the speaker was coming French. It was really pretty cool. Let's see. So we've got a couple other samples. Let's take a look at, let's see. This one. Let's see. I got the text translation. Well, let's look at the speech. All right. So we're gonna look at the speech. This one. Is it listening to the right microphone? I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, look at that. It worked. So it has speech recognition. And then you can take that and, like I said, translate it. And we could do that if we wanted to, but we don't want to do that because then you got to watch me code and debug and break things, and we don't want to do that. But then you can also do text to speech, where it will return you an MP3 file or a WAV file. You send it, and we used that again at UTA. We were using the text to speech. I don't know if you guys have ever ridden the bus, but it does announcements, before it gets to every stop. Those announcements are generated from the Azure text to speech engine based on what they've typed in for that announcement. So we use it a lot for things like that.
I've also used the speech to text because my dad is blind and doesn't do well at writing things out. But every time he tries, I was trying to get him to like kind of do his history, share
Yeah.
some stories.
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. And he pauses so often and stuff like that. But trying to use Siri or anything to dictate stuff just
Right.
terrible. So I just had him record stuff and dropped it in a Dropbox file. And then I wrote a quick Notepad script for services to do that. And with the free Azure credits, it ended up costing me nothing. But
That
even
is
if I
awesome.
exceeded them, it would have been cents.
Yeah.
And it was
Yep.
great compared to a lot of sites would have cost me like $50 to do all this.
Oh, yeah.
Translated into text.
And that is so awesome. So you send an MP3 file up there, and it returns you a document with text, and it's quick too, right?
And you can stream it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
File, you have it showing you the text as it's going.
And you bring up an interesting question. Let's just really quickly, I mean, this is going off script, so who knows if anything's going to work, but. So if you haven't ever been to the Azure pricing calculator, that's a way that you can go in and find out how much things are going to cost. It's really good if you're trying to figure out, if you're trying to put your workloads into Azure and you want to see if you can afford it or not. The Azure pricing calculator is a really great way to do that. So if we go into AI and machine learning, let's say, Azure AI services, okay. So Azure AI services used to be called cognitive services too. So if you used to know it as cognitive services, they changed the name. And that's another thing that Microsoft really likes to do is change the name of things all the flipping time. And it gets really irritating, but that's why we get paid the big bucks, I guess. All right, let's see. Okay, so let's say Azure AI speech. We're going to put it in West US 3 if we can. No, shoot. West US 2. Just so you know, West US is one of the more expensive data centers. So if you don't have to do West US, do a different one. Because that's in California and everything's more expensive in California. Let's see. We want to do standard. Let's say we want to do, 100 audio hours a month. We're looking at $100 a month. And that's for 100 audio hours. And that's on the premium tier or the standard tier. We could also have a free tier where you don't ever pay for anything. You get 5 hours per month included. So there's a lot of these, just like all Azure services, there's a lot of free tiers and a lot of free abilities that you can use there. One of the other cool ones that I wanted to show a little bit, if it's going to work for me, which probably isn't. Oh, look at that. See? It does have links to the studios on some of these. So I don't know what was going on with those other ones. Oh well. So we're going to go to the Form Recognizer Studio. So Form Recognizer is like a supercharged OCR. And it has the ability to pull out either form fields, or you can have it go through an entire document, break it into paragraphs, and do all kinds of stuff with it that way. So if we want to go in here and try it out. So to do these studios, you do have to have an Azure subscription. And you do have to have one of those AI multi-service, AI service, whatever it was, the multi-service resources set up. Because you do have to set that up in here. But so anyway, this is a big document. So we can see it's got a lot of different pages and stuff. And all we need to do is run analysis. And it's going to break it up into paragraphs. It's going to show us all of the text for the whole thing. You can scroll down here. And then you can go look at the result, and it returns it all as JSON. And you can see by the little scroll thumb here, there's a lot of JSON in there. So yeah, we're not going to look at all that. And then you can go in here, and it'll show you the Python code for that as well. And I think it's just got, oh yeah, it does have C#. So there you go. So there's the C# code. So this is a really cool thing if you need some supercharged OCR. The AI form recognizer is a really great way to do that. Okay, let's see if this will come back up. So are there any questions on any of that stuff? Oh, the other thing that is cool that I had a link to but it isn't coming up is there's a speech CLI. So you can actually install the speech CLI and it's called SPX. So if we go into the terminal here, we're going to open up a new one so it doesn't close on me. And we do SPX. So you can do all of this kind of stuff at a command line. So you can do translation. So if you want to do a PowerShell script or something where you want to do translations or something or loop through a bunch of stuff using a script, or even I think they do have a Linux version of this CLI. You can do it in Linux in all kinds of stuff like that. Then you can just do it all right here at the command line. And if we do, of course it doesn't. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So this is the one I did the other day. So if you do SPX synthesize, you pass it some text to synthesize and put it out to a WAV file. Boom. Now it has a WAV file out there called, what was it called? Sample.wav in my users folder. Let's go see if it's actually there. Because I don't want you guys to think I'm a liar. Let's see. All right, let's see if it's here. I'm not going to show you what I'm looking because if it's not there, I'm going to be really embarrassed. Oh, okay, good. I can show you now. So you can see here, we've got the sample.wav. If we play that.
Testing text to speech using the CLI.
Oh, yeah, pretty cool, right? Okay. Anyway, so I guess the point there is there's a lot of different ways that you can use these APIs. Either through the REST APIs or my favorite, the SDK, or even some of them have a CLI that you can use. Any questions on any of that stuff? Okay, everybody knows all about it. That's good. That's good. Oh, you know what? I did it wrong again, didn't I? But now I know how to make it work. Okay. So the next thing I want to look at is the Azure OpenAI. So OpenAI are the guys who make the ChatGPT, right? And so since Microsoft invested so much in OpenAI, they made OpenAI a first-class resource inside of Azure itself, okay? And so if we go look at that, I guess I didn't really need to show that slide. That was kind of lame. But, okay. So again, this one, though, is not inside of this multi-resource. It's actually its own separate resource. And so we have this, OpenAI resource here. And there's a lot of stuff going on in here. So we're going to go into Explore. So they also have Develop and Deploy here. Because you have to deploy models. GPT is only one of many, many different types of models that you can use in Azure OpenAI, right? They actually have DALL-E in there. They've got, we'll see. They've got a bunch of them in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to OpenAI Studio, which is a really fun place to go into and mess around because it has everything that you need to do using OpenAI in this studio. So you have chat, you have completions. You can even, this is new, you can bring your own data and train the chat bots on your data. So let's say you have a company and you want to write an AI chat bot based on all of your user manuals, right? Well, if you have those user manuals in a digital format, you can pump them into here and then that's what it will use to craft the answers for your queries, which is really good because you know, if you're doing that for your customers, you don't necessarily want to use just vanilla chat GPT because it goes out to the internet and it finds stuff all over who knows where you can limit it to your domain by uploading your own data. And then the DALL-E is fairly new too, and we're going to take a look at DALL-E. That's cool. So let's go take a look at the chat playground really quick. So you can see here that you can just, this looks a lot like your chat GPT that you have on, you know, you go to chat.openai.com. That's essentially what this is. So we can come in here and we can say, how are you doing? It's going to say, what are you talking about? Oh, see, see, this proves that AI is not going to take over the world because he doesn't even have any emotions or anything. So we're safe. So you guys don't need to worry about any of that stuff. So that's good. So you can even come in here and select a different template. You can have it pretend to be an Xbox customer support agent, a hiking recommendations chatbot, and all kinds of things. So this just gives you a lot of things to play with and test. So now we're using the GPT 3.5 model on this particular one, right? So when you go into OpenAI, you have to create what are called deployments. And the deployment has you pick what model you want to use, and then it creates a deployment based on that model, and then that's the model that your deployment is going to use. So this one, you can see this one's called GPT test. That was one that I built off of GPT 3.5. And that's the only GPT-based one. So if we go into models, these are all the different models that you have access to in Azure OpenAI. So we've got DaVinci, we've got GPT 3.5, Turbo, we've got DaVinci 2 and 3. Anyway, we've got all these. And they're all good for different purposes. So you kind of have to figure out which one of these would work for my business case and which one would best suit me. Because ChatGPT is really great at just general chat, but DaVinci, I think, is better at something else. And I can't remember what they all are. There's just so many of them that it's hard to keep them all straight. What's that?
Probably the completion stuff.
Okay, completion stuff would be, and we can look at the completions too. So yeah, so you can have it summarize an article. So here we have an article that it, and let's see if we summarize that, what it'll do. So, not much of a summary. Of course, it was kind of short to begin with, right? So anyway, yeah. So in here you can go and play, and so you can look at the deployments that I've got. So I've got two. I've got the GPT one and I've got the DaVinci one. And the thing to remember is that this is not free, right? So it charges you by, what do they call it, Mike? Tokens. It charges you by tokens. And you may be asking yourself, well, how many words is in a token? I don't know. It's like something that they came up with. It's like certain number of letters or syllables or...
4 characters.
Yeah, it's not broken into words. It's broken into tokens. And you get charged by the token. And I think you get a certain number of tokens for free every month, but then you start paying for it. And at least when I did it, now this may not be true anymore, but when I set up mine a couple weeks ago, I actually had to get approved to set up this OpenAI resource. So when I went to set up OpenAI, it says, hey, we're not letting just anybody do this. You have to click on this link and fill out an application and we'll get back with you. And it was, I think it was the next day that they got back and they said, hey, you're good to go. You can use Azure OpenAI. So if you're going to do this, just know that it's not going to just be, boom, you can go in and set it up. There is a couple of processes. And this will eat through your money if you start using it a lot. Yeah, Mike?
Just to shoot a warning at everyone too is, so yes, you're sending tokens. However, particularly with the GPT model, the data it gives you can also get tokenized back to it. So the longer the conversation goes, the more tokens it wants to send.
Yep.
Because its memory is actually what you send back into it, so it'll self-reference that information as well.
Yeah.
So if you scale down the amount of allowable tokens, you'll save money, but you'll also gut its memory. So
Yep.
the longer the conversation, the more each back and forth is going to
Yep.
cost too.
That's right. Because you have to send back the history so that it knows what it's talking about when it talks back to you. And those are all part of your tokens. So this is an awesome tool. It's really cool. Just make sure that you're aware of all of the idiosyncrasies before you go and start setting everything up in here. Yeah.
So that capacity call, is that what Mike's talking about, where you
Yeah.
saying how much is going to go back and forth?
Yep. Tokens per minute is how much you can put through there. So, so that's a concern too, because you may start getting timeouts if you're really pounding the heck out of the system and you're using this standard deployment. See, there's different levels of deployment. You can have a higher level of deployment, but again, that costs more money. But here's the thing, right? Everything in the cloud is eventually going to cost you money, but it should be saving you money somewhere else to make it worth doing, right? It's like when I talk about when you have like an Azure app service and you want to have it scale depending on your demand. Well, if it scales up to 10 instances, you're going to be paying for 10 instances. But if you have enough traffic to scale up to 10 instances, hopefully you're making the money to make it worth doing that, right? And that's where the cloud shines over on-prem, is if you need to scale up that server sitting in your closet, that's a lot harder than, you know, clicking a button and have it, or even auto-scaling app services. So if you need this functionality, then there's really very few options, and you're gonna be willing to pay for that. Now, if you're just playing around, it doesn't cost that much to do that. So let's take a quick look at this DAL-E. This is one of the newer ones that I think is really cool. So you can come in here and you can say a bunch of people sitting in a room listening to a presentation on Azure. Let's see how good it is. Let's see if it actually does, you guys. That would be cool. Oh, it takes forever. Oh, see, look at that.
It even says Apits.
See, I told you Microsoft is changing names all the time. That's their next name for Azure, I guess, is Apits. That's kind of funny. So I think the reason for that, and you notice that you only see the backs of their heads. So DAL-E is pretty restrictive in what it will do. So it won't show actual faces, and it won't show copyrighted stuff, and so that's why it does that. But so again, this is something that you can do in code, right? You can put this into your Visual Studio project. So this is Python. So they've just got Python. They don't have C# for this one. That's interesting. But they do have the endpoint, and they have the key, which we're not going to look at. And so you could put that into your Visual Studio. And again, since this is all REST API calls anyway, then you can do it from any IDE that you want. All right, any questions on that?
I have a question. One of the drawbacks with ChatGPT is putting proprietary information in it. Does this help with that?
Yeah, so if you put your own data in here, it'll stay inside of Azure. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons to use this rather than using the public ChatGPT APIs, which there are, right? Because you're right, or having your employees type, hey, we're getting this new client, Intel, how can we help them get more money? That goes out to the public and people can see that. So
on ChatGPT, there's people monitoring that training. Is there training with this? Are there individuals within Azure, within Microsoft, that would be doing this proprietary? Probably.
that's a good question. I don't know.
Somewhere in the terms of service.
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah, that's a good question.
I believe, I'm not a lawyer, so you want to, but when it comes to the dev side of things, Azure stuff, I believe they changed the terms of service so they cannot train their stuff on it. They don't use it, but it's worth it.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
Also on the ChatGPT, since you can put your information in program, what you can also do is the prompt engineering. You can feed it sample prompts and try to structure. This is the question. Here's how I want the answer to be structured.
Yeah.
So you can basically kind of give it your own specific company style.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with ChatGPT and with this too, prompts are 90%, right? Prompts are huge. Getting the right prompt will make it much easier to get the right information back. But yeah, like I said, so you could use your own company proprietary information, and it just builds itself off of that. So this is a really fun thing to just go in and play with. Again, everything I'm doing in here is costing me money, but that's okay because I have an MSDN account. So I got a little bit of free stuff every month. But this is kind of fun to go in and play with. And for me, it's a lot of fun to write it in code too, right? You write your application and call it and say, oh, look what my application did with 3 lines of code. I'm amazing. I'm so cool, you know, although everybody else does all the work. Any other questions on OpenAI? So yeah, that was fun. All right, so let's go take a look at, I think the next thing is Azure Machine Learning. And I don't want to get too deep into Azure Machine Learning for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's really, really complicated. And number two, I don't really know that much about it because I've never really used it. So, but I do want to show it. So everything that we've looked at so far has been what I call AI in a box, right? You call an endpoint, you get a result back. For that image recognizer, we didn't have to train it. We didn't have to give it a million pictures and train it what they were and what it was looking at. That's already been done for us, right? Microsoft has done all of that training work in the background for us. For the translation, we didn't have to go in and figure out how to translate English to French, right? All of that work has been done for us. We send a request, we get a response, boom, we're done, right? AI in a box. It's really easy to use and really convenient. However, there are cases where that's not good enough, right? There are cases where we do need to train our own models, and we do need to send in a data set and train it on that. And that's not for the faint of heart. I mean, that's not just something that any old developer can go in and start training these big AI models. You need to kind of be a data engineer, a data scientist. You kind of have to know what you're doing because there's a lot of steps to using machine learning, right? You've got to ingest the data. You've got to clean the data. You've got to validate the data. There's all kinds of stuff you have to do. It's not just point and click. But if that's what you need, then Azure gives you some great tools to do that to make it a lot easier. And I said easier, not easy, because it's not going to be easy, but it is going to be a lot easier. So what you do is you'll set up this machine learning workspace, right? And we can go into the machine learning studio here. And it uses a lot of things like Jupyter notebooks to do all of this processing. So you're going to want to, if you do want to use machine learning, I would suggest going through some of these samples to help you figure out how to do it, right? So you can use Databricks in here. You can just pump in a bunch of data through Cosmos or whatever. There's a lot of ways to get the data in here. But then you've got to do the cleaning. You've got to set up your pipelines. You've got to do all kinds of stuff. So it's not easy. And you can see here how, let's see, if we do this, yeah, there's a whole Microsoft Learn thing on using the face index. So how many know what the face index is? Yeah, I don't either. But in fact, it's probably not even pronounced face index. I don't know. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff you can do in here. Again, this is one of those aspects of Azure that if you're going to use it, you're probably pretty familiar with machine learning and data scrubbing and all that kind of stuff. That's not me, which is why I just wanted to show this and not really go too deep into it.
Super quick on here, if people do want to explore this, what they did is they have a designer in there,
Yeah.
which makes it radically easier because they have options to go in there and do the drag and drop like here's my data set.
Yeah.
Let me plug it into a data normalizer. Let me plug it into a data cleaner. And you can go in there and modify it. Otherwise, that's base settings. You can have a process, and it'll automatically start selecting different algorithms to run against for different accuracy. So, for instance, it's not easy, but the tools they provide with the designer make it much easier.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, and so you can see that they have some pre-built models that you can use. So you can pass your data into some of these pre-built models and run those and that kind of thing. So, and then once you have your models all set up, then you can use your .NET or your Python or whatever to send in new data, and you'll just get the result back based on the model that you trained. Now, typically with machine learning, it's not a matter of training it once and then you're done, you wash your hands of it and go away, right? Machine learning models, you're typically retraining it all the time because you're going to get more data and there's going to be some differences in it, so you have to train it all the time. But again, this is something that a lot of companies are asking for is machine learning. How do we use our data and how do we get meaningful results back from it? And that's where the Azure machine learning stuff comes in really handy. So if there's any questions on this, keep them to yourself, because again, I don't really know that much about it. So.
I do have a question. You may have some.
Yeah, shoot, sure.
Say you have an API that you're calling, and you don't know the API is a black box. You don't know what the formula is. Can you feed it data, and perhaps this is going to give you some snapshot of what the formula may look like?
So
Kind of reverse engineering.
potentially, right? Depends. You'd probably have to get a ton of data points to pass this in. So you'd have to call that API, I don't know how many times, 50, 100, 1,000, a million, I don't know. And the more you do it, the better your model is going to be, right? So if you do 10 data points, you're going to get a crappy result. If you do 1 million, you're probably going to get a much better result. So yeah, you could definitely do that and try to have the machine learning models try to figure that out.
Kind of what the project run into something like that though is so with the machine learning, they'll have confidence interval of how accurate do I feel my answer is.
Yep.
Right? That
Yep.
is not going to be correct. It's literally the best approximation. So trying to reverse engineer it out is like, well, it thinks it's 72% on confidence on this. Is that accurate or not? Because then you're kind of basing your reverse engineering on their possibly flawed model, and it turns into a how's the sand real quick.
Yeah.
Maybe get a starting point, you research it further.
Yep.
With known information about the industry and figure out if
Exactly.
this may, right? With most of this stuff, you don't count on verbatim. It's a great start.
That's exactly right. And again, it's like we said at the beginning, you have to verify all of this stuff, right? You can't just take it and trust it right off the bat. You have to, and like Mike said, so this gives you an index of how sure it is. What's the word I'm looking for? Confidence, a confidence score. And even all of the other APIs. So like the image recognition API will give you a confidence score. The face recognition API will give you a confidence score. This is how confident I am that this is a tiger climbing a tree, right? And so you can use that confidence score to determine if you want to accept that response or not. So most of the APIs that you're going to call are going to come with a confidence score there. And if it comes back with a confidence score of 0, then you know what? Maybe just throw it away. All right. Well, that's all I had today. So hold on. Same time tomorrow. So again, I just wanted to, crap, it does this every time. Okay, here we go. Ready? All right. Okay. So I wanted to thank STG again. That's the website if you're interested. And then if you want to contact me, you can. There's several different ways that you can do that. Like I said, I do a lot of Azure consulting, not the machine learning stuff, but I can find somebody that can do the machine learning stuff. And Mike over here, he works for STG as well, and he just recently passed the AI 900 exam, and you're working on the AI 102 now, right? Yeah. So I'm working on the AZ 305. So we have a lot of people that are certified in Azure, not certified in Sane, although maybe that too. So anyway, this is the way you can get a hold of me, and thank you for your attention. I appreciate it. And if you have any other questions, I'm going to hang around. We'll hang around and we'll chat and whatever you need. So thank you very much.